Good morning, this is E.T. in his beautiful outdoor studio. There's a strange thing about climate change. Very strange indeed. Especially in a place like Australia. It has been created by politicians and all sorts of people involved. And it's one big con. Not that climate isn't changing, but they can raise electricity prices with the idea that's part of changing the climate. And what they have done, they've made the weather, that is climate's just part of the weather system, personal. People now take the climate and that it's changing, or the weather, as in a personal front. Oh, I'm offended because the climate is changing. Individuals are offended because the climate is changing. And this is a sort of insanity induced by the universities and by the people called the left. Or so, not really the left at all. Left used to be socialists who stood up for workers' rights and stuff like that. And now they're not really that at all. They're what a mimosists, I think it's called, where you disguise yourself in the idiom of the people you want to infiltrate. Like some spiders want a wasp look like ants so they can infiltrate the ant's nest. That's what's happened by people who then infiltrated universities or whatever to pretend that we are on the left and we're sort of Marxist socialists. Well, seeing as industrial capitalism is basically defunct because of the coming of the robotic systems, that sort of appeal no longer really exists. The distribution of wealth, in that case, in what they're talking about, is to themselves, that's those on the left, and those who will comply with their brainwashing. And if you're taking climate change personally, or you're personally affronted and you personally attack someone else because the climate might be changing, you're getting into an argument over the weather, a violent, basically aggressive argument over, of all things, the weather, then that really is sort of a mass insanity induced into the system very cleverly to divide the society between those who believe in this and those who said, let's hang on a minute, what does it mean? And what they're trying to do is get rid of the age of reason and rationalism. Replace climate change with that. It is now a religious system where you take it personally because the weather might change. Well, if no one had ever mentioned climate change, all young people in Australia who really have not got into geography or the physical dynamics of the planet and don't really understand it that well, they would not know. It would just be part of the weather system they grow up with and adjust to and live with. That's all it would be. No one would be the wiser. Things happen throughout history that mankind cannot do anything about, but for the first time mankind is getting involved in something that he thinks he can do something about, but in actual fact they can do very little about. To take climate change personally is madness. It's not intelligent. People rubbish those who question the climate scientists. What's wrong with questioning a scientist? When you're told you can't question someone, that's religious. We're going back to the pre-Renaissance times when you could not argue with Catholic priests. And if you take, for example, the American presidential election and you've got a selection of the two worst possible candidates, what's next? What is next in that parade of rubbish, that masquerade of pretension that's democratic? We got Hillary Clinton, who's absolutely abysmal, and then you got Donald Trump, who's, well, no better or worse in actual fact. What's next? What is next for America? A violent revolution? Because we're not having any intelligent discussion between either of them. And that goes for Australia as well. There is no intelligent discussion whatsoever between politicians or the media about where the future holds for young people. So they diverted their attention away from the fact they're going to be redundant unless you're compliant and work for the public service, or pretend to be compliant. You have to pretend to be compliant, otherwise, in other words, you got to subvert your own individual personality and pretend to be something else just to get on in life. So therefore they talk about diversity, but at the same time they demand everyone think the same. This is what left does. It uses these triggers like, oh, with diversity now, we want diversity. Well, and if you are different, if you do ask questions, they stamp on you and say, oh no, we don't want that. In other words, they're contradicting themselves. In the first time anyone contradicts them and say, well, you're not diversity, you're not being diverse. Well, diversity is called difference. They're totally against difference. They say multiculturalism, and yet they're against certain cultures, like traditional old white male cultures, who protect women. Yet they support other cultures, like Islamic cultures, which keep women down. And they totally and they say, oh, diversity. No, they're not. They want everyone to think the same, and diversity is just another word like climate change to corral all the people who cannot think for themselves into this voter block, that therefore they can use democracy to destroy democracy. And that's what the left's doing, using triggers and using the universities and using the media to subvert democracy, which should be about rational discussion, rational appraisal of anything, making things like climate change personal of all things. Think about it for 1 minute. To create a voting bloc to destroy democracy and free speech and free liberal association for yourselves. What is next? What have the left got for the people next? Imprisonment for speaking? Because that's where this leads to. These people are dangerous. This is ET. Thank you.